Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. The Prime Minister denies claims that she reneged on a promise to halt the Solomon Hochoy Highway Extension project and have a technical committee review it. Plans to do an inventory of wildlife species in Trinidad and Tobago. And the Ministry of Community Development recently launched the Tobago leg of a developmental training program for non-governmental organizations. Thank you for joining us. Prime Minister the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar says she simply cannot give in to the request of environmentalist Dr. Wayne Kublal Singh, as there is too much at stake. She also denies claims that she reneged on a promise to halt the project and have a technical committee review it. The Prime Minister spoke out on the topic while addressing the media at a Christmas function at the Diplomatic Center.
Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar says she has not met with environmentalist Dr. Wayne Kublal Singh because he has openly said that is not what he wants. Dr. Kublal Singh has embarked on a hunger strike outside the Prime Minister's St. Clair office in protest of the extension of the Sir Solomon Hochoy Highway project. Mrs. Persad-Bissessar sought to clear the air on what some claim is her refusal to meet with Dr. Kublal Singh. She says his actions indicate his true feelings on her consideration to meet with him.
Wayne Kublal Singh insists that he does not wish to see me. His demands are for a technical review committee to evaluate the Solomon Hochoy Highway Extension project. And he wants this done, and whilst it's being done, he is demanding that the roadwork be halted. So I repeat, Mr. Kublal Singh has insisted from the very start that he does not wish to meet with the Prime Minister. In fact, Wayne has made it clear on more than one occasion. He continues to do so up to today that he has no desire to see me. Indeed, his inappropriate and aggressive rejection of the Minister of Health and others whom the government sent in his interest is consistent with this stance. So, respectfully, I ask you to understand, the failure to meet with him is not of my own making, but his refusal to meet with me.
She also denies claims that she reneged on a promise she made to him and says claims to that effect are falsehoods. She says any promises she made to Dr. Kublal Singh were made at a meeting earlier this year, and she says all promises made at that meeting were kept.
I did promise that I would suspend the work on the Mondesi portion of the highway project, pending deliberations and the review of a technical committee which was appointed. Thereafter, the work was halted, and several meetings with the Minister of Works and the technical team took place. When finally the technical team submitted their report on the evaluation, that report contained compromises based on the group's views. The results of that review were rejected by the Highway Reroute movement. I want to repeat that there was no breaking of any promise, that indeed the promise was kept, the work was halted, and only resumed months later after several meetings and the report of the technical team.
Mrs. Persad-Bissessar says too much is at stake for this project to be halted, including the possibility of the government facing legal action by contractors. The Prime Minister poses this question to all the persons who insist she should give in to Dr. Kublal Singh's demands.
As Prime Minister, what am I expected to do? Simply give in to his demands to protect his life and give up the livelihood and future of hundreds of thousands of others who want the development but choose not to protest in that fashion in favor of the demand of Mr. Kublal Singh. I am not above meeting with Wayne. I have already done so and would do so again, but that is not what is being asked of me. So I have done what any caring leader would do. I have penned a note to his mother in reply to one she sent me, mother to mother. I have sent emissaries to his side. I have placed an ambulance on standby. Naturally, his health is of concern to me, but what is also of concern to me is the development of the nation I was elected to lead. We have tried.
Gregory McBurney, News 4.
When we come back, plans to do an inventory of wildlife species in Trinidad and Tobago. Stay with us. Minister of the Environment and Water Resources, Senator the Honorable Gangas Singh, says there are plans to do an inventory of wildlife species in Trinidad and Tobago. He made the announcement while speaking at the launch of a new NGO at the Caroni Swamp.
Clean is free. This is what former Government Minister Manohar Ramsaran is aiming to teach all of Trinidad and Tobago. He plans to do so through the launch of a new non-governmental organization named Clean is Free. CIF is committed to ensuring a cleaner and healthier environment by partnering with individuals and groups and working together with governmental organizations, other NGOs and otherwise. Meanwhile, Minister of the Environment and Water Resources Gangas Singh was at the launch of CIF and says measures are coming to address the issue of indiscriminate littering and the problems it causes. Minister Singh says it is for this reason the Beverage Container Bill will soon be passed. He emphasizes the bill will assist in determining exactly how garbage can be disposed of and should help to encourage recycling. He adds the bill will also serve as a door to new business opportunities in green industries.
We will be piloting within the month the Beverage Container Bill. That bill deals with all plastic bottles, all Tetra Pak, all cans, all beverage containers will be dealt with, and there will be a system in place in which it can be economically viable for people to return those plastic bottles and those Tetra Paks and those cans. We have to also deal with how do you dispose of this? The whole question of whether it's recyclable, whether it's reusable. And I heard Simon talk about green business. There are opportunities. We have to have a whole set of fiscal incentives and incentives generally for people to point in that direction of green business. And we're dealing with that.
Meanwhile, the minister also took the time to voice his displeasure with persons who hunt in the Caroni Bird Sanctuary. He bemoans the rampant hunting of the national bird and says it has to stop, else it may lead to extinction of a species.
This very Caroni Swamp has seen the abuse by hunters of the scarlet ibis. And that kind of predatory behavior is very common in Trinidad and Tobago in dealing with the wild animal population. The hunting season is on, and by anecdotal evidence, it is clear that the animals are getting scarce and that our hunters are becoming more and more prepared to deal with them. They are using pump-action shotguns. They're using night vision goggles. And if we continue like this, then we will not leave the local species for our children to see as you see them. They will be something stuffed and not alive as you have in this environment.
Minister Singh says measures will soon be introduced to curb this problem.
We confine the hunting species to 3 per hunter this year, and it is our intention to do an inventory of the wildlife species, and we are looking, as we complete that, to ensure that we have those species available for the future generations. And it therefore means that we will have to intervene and take action in that area.
Gregory McBurney, News 4.
The Ministry of Community Development recently launched the Tobago leg of a developmental training program for non-governmental organizations. The program is part of the ministry's drive to encourage poverty alleviation throughout the country.
Leaders of community-based groups operating out of Tobago gathered to partake in the developmental training program. The 3-week-long program aims to equip the participants with the various skills necessary to assist in poverty alleviation projects. During the training program, the leaders will be trained in and exposed to skills including the conceptualization of a project, developing sound strategies, and formulating action plans. Addressing the participants, Minister of Community Development, the Honorable Winston Gypsy Peters, praises them, saying They are important if the government is to realize its goal of poverty alleviation. He reiterates that the goal is a large one and one which the government cannot handle by itself.
The Ministries of Community Development and Tobago Development are all dedicated to poverty alleviation at the community level. But there's no greater ally in this undertaking than you. Community-based and civil society organizations are foundations of poverty alleviation. While we will be able to facilitate poverty alleviation programs through funding, training, and technical advice, you are the ones who have knowledge of the real issues that families may be facing in places like Black Rock, or the concerns of youth in Bethel, or the opportunities for child development in Buku.
Minister Peters reminds the participants that their efforts will be in vain if they do not pass on the valuable information learned in the program. He emphasizes that for any attempts at poverty alleviation to be successful, any project embarked upon must be sustainable.
My hope is that as you become involved in this workshop, you will be able to identify potential projects in your communities. This training is designed to help you to find active ways of implementing programs with tangible and sustainable results. I also hope that you pay special attention to the information about creating sustainable projects. Too many times, one person has a good program, and when that person moves on, there is no one to continue the effort. To the leaders present today, be sure to identify persons within your community who will be able to continue your poverty alleviation project.
Gregory McBurney, News 4.
When we come back, a great partnership between Darren Bravo and Marlon Samuel. Stay with us. The West Indies' response to 387 all-out posted by Bangladesh was a strong one as Day 2 of the second test came to a close in Khulna as Darren Bravo and Marlon Samuels had a big partnership of their own. Wayne Cunningham has the details.
History-making innings of Abdul Hassan was brought to an end at 113 by Fidel Edwards. As Bangladesh compiled a first innings score of 387 at the start of the second day of the second test in Khulna. He became scalp number 6 for the Bajan speedster, the third time he has done so in his 55 test outings. The West Indies reply got off to a less than solid start as both openers fell before 13 overs were completed, which had the regional team precariously placed at 43 for 2, with Kyron Powell gone for 13 and Chris Gale 25. But Darren Bravo and Marlon Samuels played responsibly and got the Windies on track to overhauling the home team's total. There were not much fireworks. Instead, steady hairs prevailed, which produced some good test match batting. The post-lunch session brought 84 runs in 30 overs, and 95 came in 31 overs after tea. By the close of play, Samuels was on 109, his third test century for 2012. He hit 13 fours and 1 6 so far in his 231-ball innings. Bravo is 15 shy of his 4th test ton. As Day 2 ended with the West Indies on 241 for 2, 146 runs adrift of the host with 8 wickets in hand. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
The Honorable Anil Roberts, Minister of Sport, has announced that the promised reward of $300,000 for Trinidad and Tobago's Olympic medalists will be dispersed at the Spirit of Sport Awards on 20th December 2012. According to the minister, the sources are designed to recognize all levels of performance in sport and is therefore the ideal locale to demonstrate the country's gratitude to the efforts of 2012 Olympic medalists in the 4x100 meter. That's Richard Thompson, Emmanuel Callender, Mark Burns, Keston Bledman, and 4x400 meter, which includes Lalonde Gordon, Jaron Solomon, and Dion Lendor. Double bronze medalist Lalorne Gordon will receive $600,000. Also included in the pool of Olympians to be rewarded is George Bovell, who made the final of the 50 meters freestyle at London 2012. The Spirit of Sport Awards will be held at Queen's Hall, Port of Spain, and intends to be the hallmark sport recognition event in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be back right after this. The Institute for Gender and Development Studies, IGDS, UWI St. Augustine Unit, held a workshop on child sexual abuse and HIV. The event came under the theme, Breaking the Silence, a multi-sectoral approach to preventing and addressing child sexual abuse in Trinidad and Tobago.
The Institute for Gender and Development Studies, IGDS, says while there is a problem of underreporting, there is no doubt that child sexual abuse, CSA, and child incest are significant problems in Trinidad and Tobago. In 2006, within a 6-month period, some 165 cases of CSA were reported to the police, of which 85 related to violation of girls, 16% cases of incest. This statistic was further supported in 2008 to 2011 by reports made by community members who participated in a large qualitative study spearheaded by the IGDS.
Our terms are just descriptive. In other words, child sexual abuse, and then we use the term incest in the popular way in which it is used in Trinidad and Tobago, which is to refer to sexual activity with a close relative who is under the legal age for sexual decision making.
IGDS believes that the absence of children's right was glaring, with children being afraid to disclose CSA or incest because of severe repercussions related to loss of stability and or financial support by the family.
In terms of prevalence, we have no prevalence data.
At the beginning was saying if she's in a room with 10 women, 6 out of them would have been abused.
They would say that.
Well, they'll disclose to us, right? So it's the answer to, so this whole study for 4 years was looking qualitatively, and we hear you about the statistics, but as we all know,
we don't have, we wouldn't say that we have any scientific, these are just and those are anecdotal information.
Poverty, shame, and the need to protect men in the community frequently led to disbelief or denial of the occurrence of CSA or incest within families and communities.
We can look at reporting or calls for help, and that's what we'll be trying to find out, because we'll be trying to gauge that, to look at the impact of what we have been doing over the past 4 years. But really and truly, there is no clear prevalence data for Trinidad and Tobago.
The Institute for Gender and Development Studies, IGDS, says findings suggest that child sexual abuse and childhood incest may be the source of HIV infection among children, a position that was supported by frontline service providers and community members in society.
A prevalence study of child sexual abuse would have to be, it's not something you just have to do. It would require a lot of thought, a lot of preparation. And for example, you'd have to be very careful if you ask this of children, because you have to be very careful what you ask children, how you ask children, so that probably would not fly.
The option that we came to when we were really looking into, I mean, we have proposals.
Yeah,
we have proposals. If there are funders out there that are ready tomorrow, I mean, we have it all set up on how we would like to roll out the study.
Joseph Lopez, News 4.
The Anglican Church joins the national community in celebrating the nation's 50th anniversary of independence, as well as the 36th anniversary of the adoption of a Republican Constitution and the 140th anniversary of the establishment of the Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago.
As part of the Anglican Church's ongoing participation in the nation's celebrations of the 50th anniversary of independence, the Church is collaborating with the History Department of the University of the West Indies in presenting a public lecture by senior lecturer Dr. Rita Pemberton entitled Reflections on 50 Years of Service to Independent Trinidad and Tobago, the Anglican Church Remontant.
At independence then, it was not really ready. And then, when we are examining the church, we see a body that was not truly ready for the step it was pushed into, but yet it continued to make a contribution. I must also say at this point that the Anglican Church has done quite a lot. It has made a significant contribution to the development of Trinidad and Tobago. But its tradition is to be like a goose sitting on golden eggs in treasured silence.
She says, so many people do not know what the church has done and what the church is doing.
I did a small survey. It is not scientific. I called a few people, and persons in the age group 75 to 94 were the ones who were strongest in their claim. The church is not doing enough. But when you ask them, they can't tell you the things that the church has been doing. In their minds, the church is doing nothing. So the church needs to talk.
Dr. Pemberton will therefore examine the ways in which the many ministries of the Anglican Church have contributed to the development process in Trinidad and Tobago since 1962.
It was an outpost. It came in 1797. It functioned as a chaplaincy to the troops and the colony. Its first building was in 1801, and the church was administered from what was called the Mother Church, the Trinity Church.
But why did Miss Pemberton choose the name of her lecture, the Anglican Church Remontant? She explains.
The first thing I get, what is remontant? Well, I've had to explain to everybody. So, remontant. Remontant is the word used to describe flowers, a plant that is always flowering. So I'm using this analogy for the church. This is always flowering. It continues to flower, and it's spreading its petals over Trinidad and Tobago.
This event took place at the auditorium of UWI School of Education, Agostini Street, St. Augustine. Bishop Claude Berkeley's request for this lecture on the post-independence history of the Anglican Church in Trinidad and Tobago is but one aspect of the Anglican participation in the nation's 50th independence anniversary. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you for joining us.